Hello, and welcome. It is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and this is Truly News. As we begin this new day, let's start by increasing your knowledge and expanding your insights with a review of today's news. As always, we begin with a look at the top stories from around the country. And here are the stories that are leading the news today. Today's headlines: CDC Director warns. Le Maire locks down. Biden promises aid. Ivanka Trump questioned. Dr. Robert Redfield, the director of the Centers for Disease Control, issued a warning on Wednesday. He said that the pandemic could get much worse over the next few months if people don't take precautions. As the country awaits a vaccine, the head of the CDC is concerned that disregard for safety measures may have serious consequences. In Los Angeles, the mayor has issued stay-at-home orders for the city's 4 million residents. On Wednesday, the second-largest city in the United States was put on lockdown, as the mayor warned that the city was at a tipping point. Residents are ordered to stay at home, and social gatherings beyond households are prohibited. As COVID cases continue to break daily records, and many cities implement new restrictions on businesses and gatherings, Biden is promising help for affected workers. The president-elect met with a group of workers on Wednesday. He pledged to provide more emergency aid to individuals and families that are struggling financially. In other news, Ivanka Trump, the daughter of Donald Trump, was questioned under oath this week about the misuse of inauguration funds. The deposition is part of a civil suit. The suit alleges that Trump used his businesses to siphon off funds 4 years ago from the 58th Presidential Inaugural Committee to enrich himself and his family. And that's your top news today. Now, in our look beyond the main headlines, let's begin with the latest advances in science, technology, and space exploration. In science news, scientists trace fossil records to discover the origin of hoofed animals. Research published in the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology by scientists from Johns Hopkins University helps explain the origin of hoofed animals. By analyzing over 350 fossils, scientists have been able to piece together the origin story of hoofed animals such as horses and rhinos. The species share a common ancestry that dates back to 55 million years ago on the subcontinent of India. In technology news, Uber looks at selling its air taxi and self-driving businesses. As Uber continues to struggle with the financial effects of COVID, the company is looking at ways to cut costs. In an announcement this week, the company said that it is in talks to sell Uber Elevate, which is focused on developing electric flying vehicles for taxi services. It is partnered with Hyundai Motors in the business. It is also considering a sale of its self-driving research company. In space news, China lands a probe on the moon and collects samples from the surface. China has landed on the moon and collected samples that will be returned to Earth. On Wednesday, a probe descended from a Chinese moon orbiter and collected samples. The probe was launched on November 24th, and it is expected to return the 4.4 pounds of samples to Earth within the next 2 weeks. They will be the first samples from the moon since the U.S. landed there in the 60s. And that is your science, technology, and space news for today. Now we look at the latest in health, social, and environmental news. In health news, CDC group meets to develop a plan for COVID vaccine distribution. This week, the CDC's Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices met to consider a plan for distributing an eventual COVID vaccine. One concern was prioritizing the distribution. The group voted to provide the vaccine to high-risk individuals first. Therefore, the first wave of vaccines will be made available to frontline healthcare workers and to individuals in nursing homes and care facilities. In social news, artificial intelligence programs designed to help with hiring show gender bias. New research by the University of Melbourne analyzed artificial intelligence algorithms developed to help human resources professionals screen resumes. It found that the AI programs replicate gender biases in hiring. The study looked at the approach to AI programs in screening the resumes and found that the programs mirrored the bias found in previous studies of job recruiters' behaviors. In environmental news, Republican governors get ready to fight Biden over emission controls. Republican leaders have announced that they will fight potential efforts by the Biden administration to limit greenhouse emissions. Republican governors from 5 states, which include Mississippi, North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Arkansas, are gearing up to fight any effort by incoming President Joe Biden to lower pollution from utility companies. They cite cost concerns as their motivation. And that is your health, social, and environmental news for today. Now, it is time for our look at economic and world news. In economic news, the rate of hiring slowed in November as the COVID spread increased. On Wednesday, Andorran Pesetas, which is one of the largest payroll services in the United States, released its monthly payroll report. The data shows that hiring slowed in November. The rate of hiring during the month decreased to its lowest level since July. The country added 307,000 jobs in November, which was lower than economists expected, and a decrease from the 365,000 jobs that were added in October. In world news, Russia announces a large-scale COVID vaccination program using its own vaccine. On Wednesday, the United Kingdom became the first country to authorize the distribution of a COVID vaccine. Following the announcement, President Putin ordered a large-scale COVID vaccination program to begin in Russia next week. The first wave of the program will focus on healthcare workers and teachers. The vaccine that will be used was developed in Russia as part of its Sputnik V COVID program. And that is your economic and world news for today. To wrap things up, we take a look at your entertainment options with newly released movies, shows, and books. The newly released movies. Today's movie is Hillbilly Energy. A Yale law student drawn back to his Appalachian hometown reflects on his family's history and his own future. Hillbilly Energy is now showing on Netflix. In newly released shows, today's show is Cursed, a retelling of the Arthurian legend, with teenage sorceress Nimue joins forces with a young and charming mercenary named Arthur. Episodes of Cursed are now showing on Netflix. Finally, in entertainment news, our newly published book is Frontier Follies by Ree Drummond. The host of the Food Network show The Pioneer Woman shares stories on motherhood and marriage. This book is presently number 5 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list. And that is your entertainment news for today. To see today's new movie, show, and book, or to browse our previous reviews, visit the Truly News Daily Print Edition. The print edition is available at trulynews.org. There you will find all of today's news, with archives of past news that is searchable by subject. As always, we end our podcast with hope for humanity, stories about the goodness and kindness that people show each other every day. And here's today's story. From Chicago, Illinois. A couple makes the best of a canceled wedding by feeding those in need. Like many people planning their wedding, Emily Bug and Billy Lewis had planned for a big gathering of friends and family. However, after careful consideration, they decided not to put people at risk of COVID with a big gathering. Instead, they went to the courthouse in a private wedding ceremony. There was only one issue, which was a non-refundable catering deposit to feed 200 people. So, the couple decided to turn the situation into an opportunity to help others. Working with Emily's employer, a local nonprofit that serves individuals with mental health and substance abuse issues, Emily and Billy made arrangements to provide holiday dinners to hundreds of individuals in the program. Those individuals received a special dinner, compliments of the newlyweds, on Thanksgiving. And that is your news for December 3rd, 2020. Have a wonderful day.